The two federal politicians arrested for protesting the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion won't be going to jail. Elizabeth May and BC NDP MP Kennedy Stewart pleaded guilty to a criminal contempt of court charge for violating an injunction at Kinder Morgan's worksite. They've been ordered to pay $500 fines. But with the company's deadline for the federal government to shore up the project just 3 days away, will this be the last action the Green Party leader will take to stop Trans Mountain? Joining me now from Vancouver is the leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May. Hi, Ms. May. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Vashi. It's good to see you.
Okay, I have to ask, will this be, or will that have been your last brush with the law over Trans Mountain?
Yeah, just a small correction. The judge ordered me to pay a $1,500 fine, and I've done so. But I have no intention of violating any injunction. I made an undertaking to the court when I was arrested March 23rd that I would not be violating that injunction again. But the campaign to stop Kinder Morgan and to find a solution that works for Canada, that is something with which I'm fully engaged.
So what does that mean, I guess, about what actions you're prepared to take to stop the pipeline from getting built?
Well, I think my number one action has been to try to explain the facts of the matter, that there is no national interest in building Kinder Morgan, that there are not massive numbers of jobs to be created, the fact that Unifor and Alberta Federation of Labour, being the largest unions in Northern Alberta, intervened in the Kinder Morgan hearing before the National Energy Board to oppose the pipeline because it was a threat to jobs. I don't think many Canadians know that, or the fact that the product being shipped through the pipeline, if it's approved, is 100% for export as a raw bitumen product, and mixed with diluent becomes extremely problematic for cleanup, very different from crude. So I spend a lot of time just trying to explain to people why this project is not in the national interest and what we could do that would be in the national interest. So I will continue to campaign, speak out, demonstrate, but I don't see it. I mean, I'm turning the page on this. I made a commitment some time ago that if people were facing arrest, particularly First Nations leadership was facing arrest, I would stand in solidarity with them, and I kept my word.
What do you mean by turning the page, though?
Well, I've been arrested I was arrested for civil contempt. I've now been, I pleaded guilty to criminal contempt, which, by the way, isn't a criminal code offense. I don't have a criminal record. It doesn't affect my travel. I continue to serve the people of Saanich Gulf Islands as a very hardworking MP. I'll be back at work tomorrow morning. And
do you regret doing that, though?
No.
So how come you made an undertaking? Is that the reason why you're not prepared to do? Will you be protesting again? Will you know what I mean?
Yes, I'll be protesting again, but I don't see any. I made a commitment to be prepared to engage in nonviolent civil disobedience. I believe there is a place in a democracy, even for someone like myself who has massive respect for our court system, for the rule of law. I'm not questioning for 1 second that the judge was right to impose a harsh fine on me. That's fine. I'm not in any way disputing that. And I think it's possible to hold both positions, to be someone who loves the law and respects our court system. In fact, I'm desperately awaiting the decision from the Federal Court of Appeal, which last October heard 15 separate cases against the Kinder Morgan pipeline project, consolidated as one case. And by the way, it was the longest hearing of the Federal Court of Appeal in Canadian history. We still don't have those decisions. And that one decision from the Federal Court of Appeal on 15 different cases could mean that the permits that were issued so far don't meet the test and are actually quashed and no longer exist as legal permits. There are many things remaining to happen on this issue, including Kinder Morgan's self-imposed deadline that falls on Thursday this week.
There was a court decision last week, though. The BC Supreme Court sided with the government and the company on consultation, concluding that, quote, adequate consultation did not require British Columbia to correct any perceived shortfall in the NEB process. So does that give you any pause for concern?
No, none at all. And as the judges in that case made clear, their decision had no implications whatsoever for the bigger question. The case that you just referenced was about whether British Columbia was correct in issuing their own environmental permit under the previous government. Did the new government need to do more for consultation? The 15 court cases that were filed that are really about the main issue would be going to court and did go to court whether John Horgan was Premier or Christy Clark was Premier. Those 15 cases from First Nations, from the City of Vancouver, City of Burnaby, from numerous environmental groups are about different legal questions. There's Indigenous rights questions. There's questions of fairness and whether the NEB actually looked at the risk, which they didn't, of what happens if a tanker spills bitumen in our waters.
What if in those decisions like in the past couple ones, they do side with the company. They do say that consultation was adequate. Mr. Horgan has said that if the court decides certain things, he will respect those decisions. What about you?
I respect the court at all times. But this key question, and this is why Kinder Morgan's blackmail in taking their own project hostage is so transparently a con of some kind. Because Kinder Morgan doesn't have the right to proceed to build their pipeline today because they haven't met the NEB conditions. They have not yet even applied for 600 permits they need from the provincial government of BC. The provincial government of BC has not been obstructing the building of this pipeline. They haven't done a single thing.
Well, not in that capacity, but I think that the federal government would argue in their opposition, their political opposition, they are doing just that.
They have not done a single thing to slow down Kinder Morgan's construction of the pipeline, and Kinder Morgan doesn't have a legal right to proceed. And the 15 court cases where we're waiting a decision from the Federal Court of Appeal from a 3-person bench that heard the cases in October of 2017. Those are the main event. And every time Rachel Notley says, well, we've won all these other cases, so we're going to win the next ones, don't bet on that.
Do you think that Kinder Morgan and the federal government will reach some kind of deal that involves, I mean, I know you've been vocal about your criticism of any federal money going towards this, but do you think that they will reach a deal before May 31st?
I don't think so. The May 31st deadline, Kinder Morgan invented. It has no connection to reality except for them trying to create some fake claim that they were obstructed by outside forces. They don't have investors for their project. They don't have long-term buyers. They don't have long-term contracts. And when they exit, the Kinder Morgan parent company in Houston, Texas, has already cut Kinder Morgan Canada loose. They raised, by the way, Kinder Morgan in Houston raised $1.7 billion last year that was supposed to be for this project in Canada. They used that money to pay down their own debt and then cut Kinder Morgan Canada free as a separate corporation. There's a lot going on here under the surface that has more to do with Richard Kinder having been a senior executive of Enron. Once you understand that Kinder Morgan came from the ashes of Enron, you understand better what it is they're playing at when they say we have a deadline of May 31st. Even if there was a de-risking offer from Bill Morneau that was gold-plated, I don't think Kinder Morgan's going to complete this project because they don't have long-term customers, they don't have investors, and there isn't a market.